So good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 4 at 8:30 in the morning. Thank you all for coming. We have quite a few chairs and not that many folks. You're welcome to stay in the wings if you want, or come up and join. So this morning, what we would like to talk about is messaging with SBS Essentials and how that works together. Primarily, we're going to take a look at the Office 365 integration module. So quick survey, how many folks are using SBS Essentials in their environments? A few, a handful. How familiar are folks with SBS Essentials, especially if you are familiar with SBS Standard and understand like the differences, what's unique about the two? Obviously the folks who are deploying it, but it's new to some folks as far as what it is. Does that seem the case? Familiar with SBS Essentials at all? So I don't want to go into too much detail about what the product is. So if I'm going over stuff that you clearly already know and your eyes are glazing over already, just let me know. We can be very interactive here. We're a very small crowd, so if you have specific questions or specific things that you've done or what have you, just go ahead and introduce those. So that's kind of pre-bramble. But my name is David Fabricius, so I'm a product marketing manager at Redmond in the business group. I have Rong with me today. He is one of the program managers on the development team, and he actually led the effort to develop the Office 365 integration module. So if we play Stump the Chump here today, we should do pretty well. We've got some pretty deep technical chops up here on stage. So I am obviously going to go back and forth between the clicker and just touching the keyboard since we're all kind of a tight-knit little group here today. So obviously we're very familiar with what SBS is, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Basically, just the idea that underneath it all, we are just Windows Server with everything that Windows Server has in terms of roles and features. We take those roles and features and we turn them on, making some assumptions about if you're deploying into a small business environment, then you want things installed and configured according to best practices for small business environments. So, and then finally, the unique capabilities of SBS that make it, what we feel is the best solution for that small business market. So you're probably very familiar with these things. Of course, PC backup is very popular, as well as remote web access, what used to be RWW for those who remember back in the day. And new things are the Office 365 integration, the Windows Phone app. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to take a look at that. And these are things that really build on the new SDK that's available with SBS Essentials. So a very rich extensibility model that was introduced. So these are a couple of examples. Office, the integration module being a great example of the kind of things that you can do. But of course, there's the sky's the limit in terms of extending this product. So any questions? No, I'm not expecting. If you do have any questions about what SBS is, please just shout out and we can go into any more details. Just a quick slide on Essentials versus Standard. I know most folks have probably more familiarity with SBS Standard, which of course has that integrated Exchange server as a component product. And with Essentials, we're really looking to cloud enable small business IT. And so that's the whole point behind this deep integration with messaging in the cloud. And the first kind of thing that we'll talk about is Office 365. As we go forward, we can talk about integration with other messaging, whether that's hosted Exchange, whether that's Exchange on-premise if you want to run Exchange server side by side with Essentials, things like that. There's basically what we have with the Essentials product now is some flexibility. So you can kind of do what makes sense for your customers and like that. So basic marketing speak as far as why your first server is a good idea to have. So I think we can kind of jump through this unless anybody has any questions, any comments. So yeah, let's go ahead. Again, when you look at the user experience, it's that simplified approach, just like Standard has. and the Launchpad, of course, being the end user's interface. Lots of extensibility throughout the platform, whether it is in the dashboard, whether it is in the end user through the Launchpad. We'll take a look at how the Launchpad gets extended as an example by Office 365 and the remote web access. So I had a few slides just kind of drill into each of the feature areas, but I don't necessarily need or want to do that if everybody is pretty familiar with all this stuff. Not so much. I can do a quick overview. So let's go ahead and do that. For those of you who are very familiar, feel free to chime in with things as you've used it in your deployments, but I definitely do want to cover this for anybody who it's new to. So basically, one of the key value props for the small business server products is the idea of being able to get some real business value on day one. So if you go out and buy Windows Server Standard for a small business environment, it will definitely work. You'll get all of the infrastructure things. You'll have a file server and a print server and Active Directory domain controller and all of that. But you won't have it right as soon as you're finished with setup. Basically, you'll get a blinking green light. It'll come up to the initial task configuration screen, and then you have to pick and choose which roles and features you want to turn on and how to configure them. So that is one of the key value props with the SBS product, is that it will do some of this for you. An example is that it will install IIS, it will configure it, and it will in fact create the remote web access website, which is a way for end users through any internet-connected device, whether it's their laptop, whether it's a tablet, what have you, anything that they can run a web browser on will give them access to the shared folders in the environment to upload and download documents, as well as if the device supports RDP, then they can use that as a jumping off point to connect to the computers in the environment. So not just the server itself, but any of the client desktops that run in the environment. So as an example, you may have a line of business application or whatever type of application that you want to be able to access remotely. It's running on one special, maybe configured server back in the office. So remote web access is a great way then for end users to come in, see what's available, jump on a machine, and use it as if they were sitting in front of it in the office. So that's kind of the key thing. And again, this is just something that gets installed and configured as part of the integrated setup of SBS. So nothing that the partner has to do when they're installing it, nothing that the business customer has to do to make it go. It's just up and running on day one. And then you can also customize it with some links in terms of just, for each individual business may or may not have just some web links that they want to expose users use over and over again. So there's some customization you can do just within the product itself. And then, of course, this is an extendable interface so that third parties could add, we're just basically using web parts. You can kind of see this is very SharePoint-y looking, and different parts could be added to extend the functionality. So that's a quick overview of remote web access. Health monitoring is another thing. So again, Windows Server makes it possible to monitor the health of your server. All you have to do is understand events and event logging and all of that. What we try to do, again, with the small business products is just to bubble that up and make it a little bit easier to see what's going on and then get some help in terms of what you ought to do next. So the alert viewer will aggregate alerts across the server and all the client computers in the environment. You can kind of see up in the corner, actually have it hidden, a little button, but kind of up in the status bar. Well, I'll point it out in another slide when we can kind of see it. You'll get like a little red X to tell you that, from the dashboard that there's something you ought to look at. So you can pop up the alert viewer. And then you can see from the list which machines are being affected and then what the alert is. Not only would you get some text describing what the alert is, but you can get some prescriptive guidance. And depending on the type of alert, you might actually, even under the tasks section, so you can draw with my arrow on a couple of different ways for those of you on multiple sides of the room here, you actually get like a link to an action that you can take to address the alert and resolve the alert. So not only, just something went wrong, but here's probably what went wrong, here's probably how you can fix it, and here's a link to go and fix that problem. So hopefully helping to, again, stay ahead of problems and to fix problems before if they become real problems for the user or start impacting productivity. So that's kind of the idea behind health alerts and health monitoring, really kind of changing it from that reactive firefighting mode to more of a get in front of it, be proactive kind of thing. Then there's a couple of aspects to backup in the SBS Essentials environment. Server backup, of course. So we leverage Windows Server backup, nothing too surprising here. You can do all of the things that you would expect, from being able to restore individual files and folders to being able to do a bare metal restore of the entire server itself. So basically just boot from the installation media and pick repair instead of install, and point it to the latest backup set or whatever date that you want to restore to, and off you go. We also support client backup and restore. I think the next slide goes deeper into that. And there is also support. There's actually quite a bit of support in SBS Essentials for a headless deployment. I'm not sure that we had too many OEMs for the Essentials product pick that up, but as an example, being able to do a complete factory reset, so getting you back to day one if that was ever something that was necessary to do or desired. So I was just looking at my little timer, but I didn't start my little timer. So client backup, this is probably one of the most kind of requested, anticipated features that we added to the small business product. And the idea is to be able to, on a nightly basis, and you can kind of configure the window in which it happens from starting at such and such time in the evening to such and such time in the morning. Then the client computers that are connected to the SBS server would wake up, do their backup back up to the central server, and then go back to sleep. And again, this gives you the ability then for those client computers to go ahead and restore individual files, folders, but also do a complete bare metal restore. So there's a client PC recovery disk. You just boot from that recovery disk. You put in the administrative password for the server, and then you select which PC you're trying to recover. Again, you pick a date based on how many backups you've done. You could set retention policies so that you can keep so many dailies, so many weeklies, so many monthlies, that kind of thing, to balance between how much history you want to have versus how much disk space you want to have, obviously, to take up for backups, and get the files that you need or restore the whole thing. Sure.
Is there any way to integrate that with standard?
So that's a great question. So SBS Standard, does SBS Standard have this functionality, and can it get it? So really the issue there is just the code bases that these products were developed on. So just to throw some code names at you, SBS Standard was developed on the Cougar code base, which is a particular beast of its own. And then Windows Server Essentials was based on the newer Colorado code base, which has the big things are the new SDK and support for all this extensibility model, and on just a number of different kind of pieces like that. So we're really seeing the PC backup functionality with Essentials. So.
But then you could have an Essentials and Standard running together. They don't know Standard wants to be its own.
Right.
This doesn't care.
So Essentials does care. So SBS Essentials, like SBS Standard, it must be a domain controller. It's part of the integrated setup, and it must be the root of the domain in the forest. But what we did introduce was a product in the 2011 wave called Windows Storage Server Essentials. So Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 Essentials. And there's a few OEMs that sell that, including Western Digital. So their Sentinel appliance, the VX4000 or something crazy like that. The Western Digital Sentinel, that has the PC backup functionality. It's targeted as a NAS device, but it has it actually has client PC backup. It has RWA. It can join an existing domain. So if you take SBS Standard, SBS 2011 Standard, and Storage Server 2008 R2 Essentials, then that together, they give you kind of the best of both worlds. So if you haven't played with Breckenridge, which is code name for that, Breckenridge is just so much easier to say than Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 Essentials. But we also, I mean, several of the MVPs are actually selling this just because it took Western Digital quite a while. We haven't seen a lot of other OEMs do this because it's an embedded-only product, just like all the Windows Storage Server products are embedded-only products. So we really need our OEM partners to kind of light these up for us. And so if you go and search for that, you'll actually find some boutique OEMs. Sure. So it really leverages in terms of how backup is done or how it's implemented. It really uses the same kind of underlying Windows backup. So the first one you do is the full, and then from there on, it's just the changed blocks. So the later ones are quicker, much quicker. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, this is a very popular feature, the client backup. And together with the server backup, then you have some really good support. And of course, you can do things like folder redirection. I think we'll talk in a little bit some better together stories. We'll talk about the Windows 7 Pro Pack and how you can basically use group policies to set up some folder redirection and stuff like that. So you can get backed up in multiple ways, but I really like the client PC backup because you could do that full bare metal restore, right? So typically in a small business environment, we might have a hodgepodge of different PCs. So starting a PC over from scratch can be kind of a pain. All the drivers that it takes to get it up and running, all the applications and the application configuration settings and blah, blah, blah. So having the files and folders is great, and it's actually easier for the end user to do like previous version type restores, so they don't need administrative assistance to do a backup. But having the full client PC backup means if something goes completely awry, you can get everything back. It's so much quicker. The next thing here is Mac support. So we actually do support Mac clients in the SBS environment. So they can participate in things like the health reporting. You can use the server as a backup destination. So you use Time Machine to protect the Mac, but you can point that to the SBS server to kind of centralize, again, the data so that all the data kind of is flowing into I mean, that's the point, right? You have one central file server, which is the SBS Essentials. So you got all your critical data flowing into one central point, and then you can back that up, rotate the backups off-site, things like that. And Macintosh clients can support or can participate in that. And again, you can kind of monitor their health, and they'll appear in the dashboard, so you can kind of see the environment holistically. So there you go, heterogeneous environment support by Microsoft, even at the small business level. So we gotta like that. Add-ins. So I talked about the extensibility capabilities of SBS, and these are typically done using the add-in model. So the Office 365 integration module is a great example of an add-in, and basically what we're enabling the ISV community to do is to extend the core functionality of SBS. So it's a file server, it's your identity manager, you have all your user accounts, you can secure access to your data, you can protect your business critical files, things like that. But what else do you want to do? Maybe you want to run an antivirus program. So you buy something from Symantec or Trend or whoever, and they have an add-in, it plugs right into the dashboard, and you manage that aspect of the environment through the same administration that you do everything else. So so that's kind of the basic concept behind the add-in model. And add-ins can be pre-installed by the OEM. So as they partner with different folks, then you can see that lit up right away. The add-ins can expose functionality that's either running on-premise, so that's an application that's maybe installed and is running on the local server or in the local environment, or on another server in the local environment, whatever. Or it can be a cloud-based service or application, much like Office 365. The add-in manager is just, one of the tabs on the dashboard that allows you to control and manage the different add-ins that you have. See which add-ins you have, remove the add-ins, do the deployments, for those, kick off the installation and what have you. So that's where you can kind of see all up in your dashboard, the dashboards across, or the add-ins kind of across the whole environment. So any questions on add-ins or anything like that? So this is my Better Together slide, or starts my Better Together slide. So one of the things that we know is that, a couple things really. Small businesses don't buy servers because they think they're so awesome and cool, like me, so yeah, servers are awesome and cool. But they want to get something done. They want some business value out of what they're doing. And so for these businesses, it's all about the solution. It's all about everything kind of working together. So obviously we have good support for the clients. We have good support for smartphones and phones. We have good support for working with the productivity applications, with Office itself and things like that. So it's a whole story that that has to work together in order to add real value to the small business customer. So Windows 7 Pro is obviously what we would like to see out there in the small business environments. Obviously, we know if you've gone into any small business environment that they've maybe gone to Walmart, they bought a PC, it has Windows Home. You can work with them to do the anytime upgrade for Windows 7 to step them up from Home to Pro. But there's a number of things that you actually get when you do use the Pro SKU. So obviously, not only can you join into the SBS domain, which helps you manage the client, and you can leverage these group policies. So the Pro Pack is an add-in that you see inside the computer management tab of the dashboard, that you can actually push out some group policies that will turn on things like Defender and make sure Defender stays on, that the firewall is turned on and it stays on. As people come and go from their homes to the office, some of these things can get turned off sometimes. If little Johnny wants to play his game, but he's getting some issue because something's blocking it, maybe he turns off the firewall so that his game works, and then he comes back into the office the next day, and Dad's computer infects everybody with some goofy virus, right? So we want a way with group policy to try to keep everything turned on, healthy as it should be. So, so the Pro Pack is a great thing to leverage, and is one of the reasons why Pro is better than Home. Where or what? Where can you get it? So you can get this through the Download Center, and in fact, you can get it from, we are trying, to put that out there, we are trying to make Pinpoint a useful and good place to go to get stuff, to get contact information from how to find a partner, as well as how to get software type things. So you can find our add-ins in Pinpoint. You can also find the Essentials add-ins in the Microsoft Download Center. And if you go to our blog, the SBS team blog, and search for the Pro Pack, we had a great article introducing it, and that, of course, is going to have a link to the Download Center where you can grab that as well. So, yeah. So the next one is the phone, Windows 7 Phone. So there's a Windows 7 Phone app. It's actually really pretty cool. And so on your mobile device, you can do some light administration type work, and you get alerts. So you get that kind of the same health monitoring type information on your phone that you see in the dashboard. You can also take a look at your users and do some light user administration stuff. Of course, you can access the shared folders in the environment and things like this. So without kind of reading you this laundry list of cool features, there's a lot of things that you're able to do just with your smartphone. So again, this gets to, you may have heard as you go through all the various sessions throughout TechEd, that the 4-pillar slide for Windows Server 2012, if you haven't seen that yet, I'm really impressed. But if you have, one of the pillars is the modern work style enabled. And this idea that in the modern work style, people use smartphones, people use tablets, people use all kinds of different devices and work at all kinds of different times from all kinds of different locations. And so the small business environment has to embrace that exact same model. So even small businesses, or maybe even especially small businesses, need a lot of flexibility in order to get their job done. There's only a few people involved, so they need to be very agile and very flexible. Yeah? So does it work with SBS Standard? I think, again, this is something that leverages the extensibility model, so it only works with Essentials. So you would do one at a time. Like if you had multiple clients that you were support, like if you were the partner administrator and you had like 4, 5, 6, whatever different clients, when you connect the phone app to the server that you want to communicate with, supply the credentials or whatever, you're going to go to that one Essentials server. So if you had something, yeah, so in that case, you'd kind of have to bounce between several, one at a time, yeah. That's actually great feedback, wrong, that we could maybe look at, is the idea to kind of have a way to quickly switch between context for different server environments. That's kind of a cool idea. So in the sense, and I need to be kind of careful here as far, because some of this is on the drawing board kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. When you look at the SDK and developing add-ins, then the platform that it runs against is very similar. So the Windows 8 RT environment is very similar to the Windows Phone 7 environment. So the ability to run an application that looks so much like this and yet runs on a tablet is definitely a doable thing. I mean, the extensibility model really makes that kind of development possible. So watch the blog. We may have more announcements. We will definitely post new articles on an ongoing basis. You may see something related to that at some point. How's that? So that's kind of a quick overview of some of the highlights of the SBS features. So great dialogue. I know several of you know quite a bit about that already. So, but I appreciate the going over it with new aspects and the details. So the next thing I wanted to really talk about is getting into this idea of the needs of the customer and how messaging really works in the Essentials environment. So we know all these things. Like this is the same for big customers, little customers. It's the same for partners. You have tons of work to do every day. You want to do more and more in just a limited amount of time. And you need solutions, end-to-end solutions, powerful, secure, easy to use. You want to actually, especially small businesses, they want to do something that's going to make them money, right? They're not into technology for technology's sake. They're trying to be more productive. They're trying to go home and be with their families and things like that. So they want a way to improve their productivity, whether that's their own personal productivity or for their business as a whole. You definitely need to safeguard the information, have secure access, and you want infrastructure that works, that you don't have to be babysitting or trying to make sure that you've got the latest things deployed and you've got all the security updates and you've got it configured just so and everything like that. So when we combine SBS 2011 Essentials and the Office 365 environment, that really gives you the power of all this effort that Microsoft is putting into this huge infrastructure and leverage it out for messaging for even the smallest of businesses. 1 or 2 mailboxes is just as easy for Office 365 to support as hundreds of mailboxes. So you can kind of just rent what you need and let the infrastructure boys in big data centers take care of all of the details. So again, just to kind of reiterate some of these things, this is kind of marketing, so we probably don't need to spend a whole lot of time in the marketing. Let's kind of quickly move to what is the module and do a demo of it. But being able to safeguard the information and the work that they have, making sure that you have good security in place and the connections are secure as you get to your data, being able to have access, again, this whole modern work style type thing, being able to access it from whatever device you have, wherever you are, so that you can get more done, and really enjoy this flexibility of having the workloads available in the cloud. The other thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, and this becomes a question across folks' minds as people more and more start embracing the cloud, is should I go with like SBS and run all my stuff on premise? Or should I go with like Office 365 and just have everything in the cloud? Or what's the best approach? And really, I feel like a hybrid approach is a very good, they're complementary products. There's quite a bit that you can do with Office 365, right? You have all of these different, I keep pressing the wrong button when I want my little laser pointer. You've got all this great stuff from web hosting to email to a website with file and the SharePoint functionality and chatting online with Lync. Lync is so hard to do in a small business environment in terms of getting a communication server up and going, but it's kind of free with Lync. It's pretty awesome. You have the antivirus through your email and all this kind of stuff. So you get quite a bit of value out of Office 365, and it's a very wonderful thing. But when you combine that with SBS Essentials running on premise, it kind of completes the story. You get all these other things. You get a much greater enhanced data protection and security. When we talk about the client PC backup and the ability to restore a full client PC if it ever dies or has a hardware problem or what have you, that's very hard to do if you're only doing backups in the cloud, for example, because typically you back up just data files and data folders. You wouldn't do the whole PC, and you wouldn't be able to do that bare metal restore, which is something that you could totally do if you have that server on premise. When you look at things like, oh, I have a lot of data that I want to keep, it's not necessarily active data, but I've got a couple of terabytes of whatever, CAD files or whatever data, multimedia data or whatever you have. You don't want to get rid of that data. You want to be able to access it. But to store all that data in the cloud becomes expensive as the data just gets bigger. So you have to make kind of trade-offs. But locally, storage is cheap, and external USB hard drives are super cheap. And so you can plug them in and take them out and things like that. So really, when you look across, the combination of Office 365 and SBS Essentials together really gives you that, that full end-to-end solution. So that's kind of that. So enough about kind of marketing. Now we'll kind of dive into more details about the Office 365 integration module itself, a little bit about how it works, what it does, and then we'll do a demo so you can actually see it. We'll use a click-through demo because we're a small business environment and also because Office 365 is pretty dynamic. But you can definitely see it screen by screen and exactly how it looks and how it works. So basically, this is an add-in. It's providing that additional value. It's extending the capability of the base SBS Essentials product. It provides an at-a-glance view of your subscription. So here, the last big panel is basically inside the dashboard on the Office 365 tab. We have some information about your subscription, how many licenses you're using, when your expiration date is, things like that. It has a quick jumping off link in a tasks pane to go ahead and jump to the Office 365 administration tools and to their website. Things like billing and stuff like that is still done through the Office 365 website, but things like configuring mailboxes and associating user accounts with mailboxes is done through the dashboard. Making it easy to keep passwords synchronized for the end user and to easily configure your DNS stuff. So let's take a look at these different areas. So here's the main feature sections that we'll take a look at. So the first one being simple configuration. So it's actually quite easy to get up and running with Office 365. After you install the module or after you install Update Rollup 2, which has been out for a while, so that would be the way that you would want to do it today. Then as you run the configuration wizard, one of the first things it'll ask you is whether or not you already have an Office 365 subscription. And again, actually this is an interesting point because you can either start by having SBS Essentials in the environment and then looking at online messaging, or for companies who've already started with online messaging and already have Office 365, then this is a good opportunity to come in and talk about SBS Essentials kind of completing that full story. So whether you have Office 365 first or whether you add it second, both motions actually work pretty well because they are so complementary. So I think I skipped ahead. So when you're running through the configuration wizard for the module, then you can either subscribe or do a trial if you're not participating in Office 365 yet. Or if you already have, then the next page in the wizard is to simply put in your credentials for your Office 365 subscription. That's all the integration module needs to know. And then it will, from that, use the APIs that Office 365 provides and use your credentials to create a secure connection to that website to do all of the tasks kind of under the covers through the dashboard. So then when we look at this unified identity management, the idea is that SPS Essentials can be the place where you set up your user accounts, and then you can associate for each user account what mailbox in Office 365 that those users should have. One question I think that kind of comes up, I'm showing in my demo kind of the default name of the Office 365 domain, the onmicrosoft.com. Can you put in a real name? You absolutely can put in a real name when you are in the Office 365 administration pages, web pages. You can have multiple domain names, and you mark one as primary, and it's the primary domain name that the user mailboxes will use by default, and that's what SPS will use. When we look at probably one of the most valuable aspects of this is keeping the passwords in sync. So you have your username and password on the SPS side, and then you want to have the same username and password on the Office 365 side. So as people are accessing shared folders in their environment or their mailboxes, they want to have the same identity. And so this module then allows you to do that. So what happens is on your client PC, joined to what's your laptop, your desktop, whatever it is, joined to the SPS environment, when you hit Control-Alt-Delete, change my password, then that change obviously is directed to the SPS server. The integration module will know that you're changing your password, so that password will then get pushed through to Office 365 using that secure connection that's secured by your credentials information. And then the same credentials are able to be used then for both your local resources as well as your cloud-based resources. So it's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of movie magic here, but being able to do that for the end user means that they don't have to manually do that process. And as you have policies in the SPS environment, whether you have them change their password on a regular basis or what have you, then being able to have one place where the password is set and to know that that is going to stay the same in both places just reduces that confusion and makes it easy to do. The other thing that you can do, and it kind of depends on how much experience the user has with accounts or signing into their local PC, but we're probably all pretty familiar with the Active Directory domain, whack your username and then your password. But when you access your email, if you go to Hotmail or whatever, if you go to Office 365, then it's my name at my domain, right? So when you install the Office 365 module, you can actually use my email address at my domain name to log in to the SPS Essentials server. So again, making a single, consistent sign-on experience, whether you're accessing local resources or cloud-based resources. So again, that can really help. You only have to teach the users one thing. Okay. The last one, I think it's the last one, is this integrated domain name configuration. So one of the challenges that many folks can have is how to get DNS all working. You want to have that same email address as your remote web access, so contoso.com. You want david@contoso.com, and you also want to have remote.contoso.com to get into remote web access to access your PCs or your shared folders or anything like this. So the integration module makes it very easy to configure that together, so that single consistent domain name experience, again, both for your SPS environment as well as your Office 365 environment. And we touched on this on the intro slide, but just to reiterate, inside the dashboard, so again, you have one single administrative console. You can manage your users, you can manage your PCs, you can manage your add-ins, and as you put add-ins into the console, it will let you manage straight from that same dashboard information about that add-in, and in this case, Office 365. So you're seeing a lot of different things. Again, that at-a-glance information about your account, as well as being able to do everything else in the environment. The price difference between so kind of the price difference between using Office 365 versus using Exchange Server on-premise. So when you look at, there's a couple different plan levels, but most of the time for small businesses, you're looking at the P1 plan for Office 365, and it's like $6 a month per user.
$6 per month per user.
So when you look at that and then compare that to if you were to purchase Exchange Server and the Exchange Server CALs, so I'm going to have to guess, and I don't know what MSRP type numbers are or what it's going to be if you buy it through Open, but let's say it's around $600, $650 or something for Exchange Server, and then the CALs are, I don't know, $65 a piece or something like this. So, and then I think another thing to consider when you're looking at Exchange Server on-premise versus Office 365 in the cloud is that you also have to maintain the Exchange Server. And you do have to fix it when it breaks, and you do have to apply the updates. So there is an upfront cost that you can avoid if you rent the service, and there's ongoing maintenance costs. So as you're kind of trying to figure out what makes the most sense, it makes sense to consider both of those things that you would have to do, and both of those costs that become associated with messaging. It's not just a one-time fee to get Exchange Server in your environment. There is that, but there's also that ongoing maintenance. So, but it depends. Yeah.
What about the Link integration?
So Link and the presence for users is something that you get with Office 365. So it's not additional. Nope. You get all of that, and again, that's a hard thing to do if you run it on premise for a small business. It's very difficult to get. I mean, it's expensive, and then for 5 people, we don't see too many people doing it. So yeah, so you get the mailboxes, you get SharePoint, you get a website, you get Link, you get a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
So all the services, they're not $6 a month. All the services, it was just the exchange part of $6.
No, the P1 plan, and I'd highly encourage you to jump out to the Office 365 site to get the specific details, but the P1 plan includes access to Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Link Online. There's like 3 or 4 services that are all part of the $6 a month.
Well, see, I did that less than a year ago, and where it really ran expensive was when I needed to archive the exchange stuff, for business.
Oh, archiving.
And it doubled the cost, and it threw me right out.
Gotcha. So, and I've talked to a couple people in the booth about archiving the mail and what's the best way to kind of do that. And I know there's some third-party solutions that kind of synchronize into like a database kind of thing. I'm not as sure what the Office 365 team is offering, or if they're adjusting that kind of based on the uptake, obviously, as they try to price something out if nobody's using it. I'm sure adjustments will be made. That's one of the nicer things, too, about online services is they tend to be able to iterate more quickly than the on-premise products can. But yeah, email archiving can be something of a challenge. I'm not really sure where they're at with that.
I don't want to find myself out of a job. Companies sites go 365, they don't need small business.
Well, that's the thing. And so when you look at, so can you do everything in the cloud, and do you need anything on premise? And from a partner's perspective, how do I add value, or what can I kind of do in that environment if everything goes to the cloud? And so I really actually like that question. 2 things. One, I think the hybrid approach still is going to be a great thing for small businesses. The things that you can do with the on-premise server and the scenarios that unlocks in terms of data protection and recovery scenarios has tons of value. But then even more than that, like when you're looking at what you can do for the customers, there's a lot of business value that can be added in the IT space above just babysitting the server, creating accounts and things like that. The plumbing, you don't get a lot of credit for doing. So you get some, and helping to deploy PCs and things like that. But then if you do things like with SharePoint, SharePoint is a great undertapped tool that can be exploited in small business environments to do a number of different things. But no small business owner even knows what SharePoint is. Like, we say the word SharePoint at Microsoft, and it means lots of things to lots of people. But if you say SharePoint to a business owner, it means nothing, like nothing. So creating SharePoint applications, even something as simple as a team calendar, and how that can enhance business productivity and collaboration. But you can go much further than just a simple team calendar. Little applications that you can run in the web. Project tracking is a great example. Very easy to do if you know. So these kind of value-add services that can be built on top of the services that Office 365 provides can be a great way to make money in a way that's very mutually beneficial between the partner and the business. Because when you do something, create a little web part type thing, or configure a web part, a little application that they can leverage, and they start making money or saving money, it's kind of the same thing, they get a really clear and quick ROI out of that kind of transaction. So that when it's time 3 years later to replace their server that's no longer under warranty, then you're the guy that saved them $50,000 a year by investing in a $5,000 project to create a little SharePoint application. So you're the trusted advisor now, not just the break-fix guy. And even if everything kind of moves to the cloud, or a lot of things move to the cloud, being the guy who knows what you can do with that stuff is hugely valuable, even beyond. I mean, you're still going to have the opportunity to do things, bring a new PC into the environment, get it configured, get it deployed and set up, and kind of the server side itself, server pieces itself. But these value-added things are probably, especially as more and more things go to the cloud and more opportunities are in the cloud, it's kind of that. To me, it's those kind of opportunities that are really the way forward. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the demo. I know I've done a lot of talking. We've seen a lot of slides. We'll bounce over to our demo laptop PC. I'll let Rong start doing some of the talking.
Yep. Thanks, David. All right, so it's time to look at the real the product UIs. So just to save time, we are going to use the recorded demo here. So the first thing I would do is, in order to turn on the integration feature on SPS Essential with Office 365, is run this getting started task. So this is our dashboard, and if you click the Home tab, you'll see a bunch of getting started tasks, and you click the Setup Microsoft Office 365 integration, and it will launch the Getting Started wizard. So the first page is sort of informational page that tells you what are the benefits of turning on this integration component, on SPS Essential. So I just click Next, and here you can get to sign up with Office 365 if you don't have a subscription yet. So we expose the sign-up links for both the small business plan and the enterprise plan. And if you are not very sure that you want to purchase the service right now, you can sign up with a trial account. So since I already have Office 365 subscription, so I just click Next. And in the next page, I just enter the tenant admin account. So the Office 365 integration service running on SPS Essential server will use this tenant admin account to talk to the online service. So when I click Next, now this is kind of interesting. So David mentioned that one of the key scenarios that the Office 365 integration module offers is password sync. So the integration service will automatically sync the user passwords from SPS network to Office 365. Now, in order for the password sync to succeed, we have to make sure that the password policy on SPS server is consistent with the password policy on Office 365. So that's why there's this strong password policy requirement. If you want to turn on this integration feature, you have to use a strong password policy. And this is also a best, security best practice. So I just confirm that I understand this requirement and click next. So that's it. So this is all the information the wizard needs in order to turn on this feature. So under the cover, the service will use the tenant admin account to authenticate with Office 365, and will also do a bunch of local completion tasks. So when I click the close button, the wizard will actually restart the dashboard, and in order for all the changes to take effect. So after the dashboard is restarted, the first thing you will notice is there's a new tab added to the dashboard, Office 365. So when I click this tab, it's the same screenshot that you see from David's previous slide. So here, it basically displays a bunch of information about my organization, about my Office 5 subscription, information like what kind of plan I have, and also the how many licenses have been used, and what are the domains configured with Office 5. And on the right, you also see a few admin tasks, like you can change the tenant admin account that the service integration service uses to talk to Office 365. You can also link a domain to Office 365. We'll come back later to this. And you can also uninstall the integration feature. And below that, there's a few kind of shortcuts to the Office 365 portal. So for example, if I click the Manage Office 365 link, it will actually open the browser and point me to the Office 365 portal. So now let's switch to the Users tab, and I'll show you, what kind of seamlessly integrated user account management experience we have here. So let's say, I have been using SPS Essential for a while, and I have created all the user accounts. But I'm new to Office 365, and so the first thing I need to do is I need to create, a new Office 365 account for my employees. So we offer a wizard for you to bulk add the user accounts to Office 365. So you can just click this link, and it will launch a wizard. So in this table, it lists all the local user accounts that do not have Office 365 account assigned yet. So the left column shows the local user account name, and the right column shows on the right column you can specify what Office 365 account name you want to specify with each of the user. And once you select which user accounts you want to add to the cloud service, you can click next. And that's it. So just by a couple of simple clicks, you can add local user accounts to Office 365. And those online accounts will be mapped to the local user accounts. So notice that there's a note here. The users must change their password, Windows password, at their next log on to the network. This is question. No, there's no such requirement. You can, you can add the accounts before you configure the domain, or you can, add the accounts after you configure the domain. So, yeah, you'll see the domain configuration experience later. So the reason why these users need to change their Windows password is to ensure that the initial password sync, right? So such that those users can just use their Windows password to log on Office 365. So let's close the wizard. And now if you want to assign an Office 365 account to an individual user account on SBS Essential, you can do that. So let's say I want to assign an Office 365 account to the local admin account. So I can just click this task, and it will launch a wizard. And on this page, it presents two options. So the first option is you can create a new Office 365 account and assign to this new user account. And the second, if the user already has an O365 account, then you can just select the second option and select the existing O365 account from the drop-down list and click Next. So in this case, since I already have an online account for this local admin user, so I just selected the second option and click Next. So now, if you close the wizard, you'll see on the Users tab, the local admin account has a valid Office 365 account name assigned to it. Now let's quickly look at add user wizard. Say there's a new employee coming on board, and I want to create a user account, provision user account for this new user. So I would click add a user account here, and it pops up the add user wizard. For those of you who have used SBS product before, this should be very familiar. So the first page is an existing page. You can enter the first name, last name, password, and also select the level of access, whether the user is a standard user or you want to give the user the admin access. So when you click Next, again, this is an existing page where you can define the shared photo access privilege for this new user. Now, when I click Next, so this is the new wizard page that only show up when you have Office 365 integration feature turned on SBS Essential. So again, you have two options here. The first option is you can create a new Office 365 account and assign to this new user. Or, in the case where the user already have an Office 365 account, then you can just select the second option and select the Office 365 account from the drop-down list. So click Next.
I would just I'd also just add, you probably saw there's even a third option, which is that you don't have to assign an account at all. So some users, perhaps in your environment, maybe it's an intern or something like that, you don't want to rent a mailbox for them, but they do need an account because they're going to do something local access-wise. So you can just choose to not provision Office 365 for users as well. So it's just a kind of a third choice.
That's right. So now you have successfully added the new user account. So it means two things, right? The new user now has a local user account to access the local SBS network, and the user now also has a Office 365 account for email, SharePoint, link access, etc. Now, next, I want to show you, how easy it can be to configure a domain name for Office 365. So there's a link, a domain to Office 365 task on the task menu under the Office 365 tab, and basically what it does, it will basically detect the domain name you have configured with the RWA site, the Model Web Access site on SBS Essential, and configure the same domain name for your Office 365. So when you launch this wizard, so the first page is again sort of educational page, and so really the biggest reason for you to configure domain name with O365 is you want to configure your vanity domain name as your email domain. So you want your email address to be at contoso.com rather than contoso.onmicrosoft.com. Okay, so when I click next, so at this page, the wizard will check two requirements. So the first requirement is whether the remote web access is turned on, and if it's not turned on, you need to turn it on. And the second requirement is whether a domain is already configured for the RWA site. So if either requirement is not met, the wizard will block there. So now here I want to show you two different kind of experiences. Now for the first experience, I already configure vanity domain for RWA site, and it's good. And also when I configure the domain name, for my RWA site, I choose to let server manage the domain for me. So what that means, for those of you who have used SPS Essential, so there's an option for you to purchase like a vanity domain from one of the SPS domain register partner, and have the SPS server to manage the domain for you. So the condition is the domain name has to come from one of the SPS domain register partner like GoDaddy or Enom, because they implement a standard service which makes it possible for SPS server to to make a bunch of APIs in order to manage all the DNS records. Okay, now if I have a vanity domain from GoDaddy and I have configured for the RWA site, so I can just click next, and that's it. There's no manual step involved here. So the wizard will actually take the same domain name and call a bunch of APIs to O365 service and to your domain register in order to make all the DNS records configured to make this happen. Now next I want to show you like what's the kind of more complicated experience. So if you haven't got your RWA site, got a name configured for your RWA site, so you need to click the required action here to set up a domain. Now let's say I want to, this is an existing domain configuration wizard currently on SPS Essential. So let's say I just want to configure a vanity domain from from my own ISP. So I selected the option to use an existing domain name here, and click next. And on the next page, I choose to manage the domain name on my own. So that means I need to manually create all the DNS records required. And after I made all the DNS configurations myself manually, I check the checkbox here and click next. And now at this time, the RWA domain name configuration wizard will ask you for a certificate. And this certificate is required by RWA site, but not required by Office 365. So I'll go ahead choose the second option because I already have an existing SSL certificate, and here I provided the certificate file. And now the domain name is configured for your RWA site. So when I click the close button, it will bring me back to the original domain wizard for Office 365. So here the wizard will tell you, what are the, basically the wizard will detect that the domain name is not managed by server itself. So it will show you a bunch of DNS records that you need to manually create at your domain register. So you can click the this text file, it will show all the DNS record that you need to create. For example, the Amex record for your email, the auto discover record, and also a few link related DNS records. So after you configure all the DNS record, you can close the text file and confirm that you have configured the required DNS record and click next. And now you have all the DNS record required for the domain name to be used by Office 365. Now, does it mean that Office 365 can use the domain right away? The answer is actually no. There's a gap. There's a delay between the time you configure all the DNS records and the time when Office 365 service can recognize all the DNS records and accept the domain, because it takes time for the DNS records to propagate through all through the internet. All right. So last, I want to show you quickly, what kind of integration we have on the Launchpad. So the Launchpad is basically a client app, for easily connecting to SBS Essential Server. So for example, you can launch, the dashboard, server dashboard remotely from a domain joined client, or you can access the share photo on the server from Launchpad. So we added another entry here for Office 365. So when you click this menu, it expands the second level menu items. So here you see three menus here. The first menu is to access the Outlook web app. So if I click this button, it will launch the browser and it will point me to my Outlook web app site for Office 365. Okay, so let's, and also you can navigate to other Office 365 portal, other like sub nodes under the portal. So let's come back to the Launchpad. So the second item here is basically for you to easily open the Office 365 portal on the browser. And the third one is a quick start help topic. And I would highly recommend all the end users to first take a look at the quick start and like your office workers, so they know like what kind of stuff they need to do in order to set up their desktop apps to work with Office 365. Okay, that's all I want to demo today. Thank you.
So it's a quick look at the app, and we showed as an example in the demo using Office web app or the Outlook web app in order to do email through the browser. You can also configure, if you're using Office Outlook, the client applications, you have the productivity suite. You can go ahead and configure that the same kind of way as you use that same username and password that gets synchronized between the Windows account and the Office 365 account. Those same credentials would be used to set up Outlook. So you can use either one. For those who have the suite, they can use Outlook. For those who have, for those you want to do really light touch or just want kind of that browser-based experience, you can use the web apps. Either way, works pretty much the same. So we've got about 3 minutes left or so. Happy to take any other questions, but that's basically the presentation that we had for you today. Hopefully that answered some questions, gave you some good insight about that. Thanks for joining us. I hope you've had a great Tech Ed, and yeah, thanks.
Questions? What is your roadmap?
So in terms of kind of next steps and VNext and things like that, today at Tech Ed, at the show, we're just focusing on the in-market products, but definitely encourage you to follow the blog, And as we go forward, the newest announcements will be made there. So Office 15 and Exchange 15 and support plans for that. So you should always turn off your phone before you do presentations. But if you don't, you can just hang up real quick. So again, as we get closer, follow the blog and we'll have information about that.
Yeah, so actually, I don't know if you guys have tried the Office 15 beta version already. So you actually can connect to Office Wave 15 beta using the same integration module on SBS Essential today. Yeah, but for sure we will support Wave 15 and make sure that there's a reasonable, there's a good enough experience there as well.
All right, very cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.